I just recently watched a video from Carrie McCarpet where she talks about veganism at a festival. And she talks about veganism and how we can spread it through a YouTube platform, through a social media platform. It's just basically easier now to talk about veganism because you can upload a video right away and anyone from all over the world can do it, and you can get connected. And she also mentioned that there is a message with veganism that she wants to get out, and that is, to reduce suffering to yourself and your surroundings, basically. And I truly believe in that message. I'm vegan myself, and I have been vegan for over a year now. Went vegan 1st of July 2014. And there has been some difficulties going vegan, and I'm still vegan and I don't plan on going back ever, but there has been some challenges that I have faced and that I'm facing now. And it made me, when I first went vegan, I started a website about veganism, and I'm really into cooking. I love making food, and I try and spread a positive message. I try and make it family friendly and just try and keep it clean so that I make my message come across in a way for everyone to understand. So my website was about that and about putting a positive picture on veganism, because before I went vegan, I thought about vegans as very extreme and basically a lot of hippies that were sensitive, too sensitive, and then I became one. So I try and change the way people view veganism, and so that they don't view it the way that I did before. And one of the things that I've been seeing is that, for instance, Osina O'Neill, she has been struggling with being true to herself. She's been talking about that a lot in her videos lately, and she wants to quit social media, which I respect, and if that's what works for her, go for it. But I do think that I can also feel the pressure on trying to be as perfect as possible and not say the wrong thing when I'm debating veganism, and try not to lose my cool or anything like that. So it can be a challenge to be neutral and not get very emotional about things. So I can, when I want to get the message across, again, I want to do it family friendly, I want to do it sort of joyfully, like Colleen Patrick Goudreau puts it, joyful vegan. And that's kind of how I want to come across, but it's not always like that. It can be difficult, not necessarily because people crave meat or they feel like they want to eat meat. I don't have that. I really don't miss it at all. The only thing I miss is Bayless. But I actually found out a couple of weeks ago that they have vegan Bayless, so there's that going for me. But anyway, so it's not the craving of the meat, fish, and eggs and milk. That's not what I'm craving. Some things that I'm craving is the simplicity of things, like just buying something and eating it. But it's getting easier now because there are becoming more and more vegan products, but I usually have to make a whole lot of food from scratch, and as much as I do love making food from scratch, it can be kind of tiring to do it every day, many times a day. So I do miss the convenience of not being vegan, and it took me a while to read all the labels and so on. Those things are predictable, that, okay, veganism is going to be hard, you're probably going to have cravings, or You're gonna miss some things, and I haven't really had much problems with friends or family members. There's been a couple of family members that has been, I don't want to say not supportive, but they don't get it and they don't really like it, but they do respect it to some degree. But the problem isn't there. The problem that I've had is that lately I got sick about 6 months ago, and when I got sick, I went to my doctor and I told him that I was vegan, and he couldn't understand it. He was like, "Why?" And I told him, well, mainly I went vegan because I want to try and avoid heart disease. Because my grandfather and grandmother and my father all died from a heart attack. And my grandmother had multiple heart attacks before it finally wore her down. And my mom, she had a stroke and woke up with half of her body paralyzed. So I'm just trying to do everything that I can to avoid that same fate. And he was like, yeah, but you need cholesterol. And I said, well, we produce our own cholesterol. So of course we need it, but we produce our own, so I don't have to eat it. And then he asked me, well, is it enough? Like, he didn't know. He didn't know if it was enough. And I just remember sitting there like, how can you say something like that if you don't even know how much cholesterol we need or if we produce enough? And I could just see clearly that his behavior changed and that he kind of didn't take me seriously anymore. And that was my doctor, my medical doctor. And I figured, wow, that was new. I've been loyal to my doctor for many years. He's helped me tremendously with a lot of other things. Like, for instance, when I have a skin condition called atopic skin with extreme inflammation, and he said, I don't know anything about skin, so I'm going to send you to the best skincare specialist out there. And that's what he did. And I was there for like a minute, and he had already diagnosed me because he knew what he was talking about. So he said, you have atopic skin, and it's kind of extreme in your case, and you have to take these pills for the rest of your life. Here's your prescription, and it's going to help tremendously. It's not going to make it go away, but it's going to help tremendously. So my life changed. I really became a new person after I got those pills. So I'm not against the medical care system. I do think we need it, and I think it has its place. But the weird thing is that my doctor didn't know anything about nutrition, and yet he dared talking to me about, well, we need meat. And he kept going on and on about our stomachs are built for eating meat. It's just, you have people that study nutrition for 3 to 10 years, taking a bachelor, a master, or a doctor's degree, and they've studied this for way longer than a medical care or a medical doctor has. So I just went out of the room really perplexed. I didn't know what to think. After a while, I kind of thought, wow, my doctor is a moron. Because when you look at the dietary guidelines, public health guidelines from Norway, they say that we should be eating a plant-based diet. And I also went to the Lung and Heart Association. They say the same thing. And I went to the World Cancer Research Fund, checked their website, same thing there, and they say reduce the amount of red meat, avoid processed meat, and it's the same Food and Agriculture Organization, the United Nations, they all promote vegetarianism and a plant-based diet. So I didn't know why my doctor said those things, because to me, it's one thing if you don't know and you say, I don't know, let me send you to the best dietitian, like he should have done when he sent me to the best skin doctor in town. He should have done that with my diet if he was concerned. And anyway, after a while, I actually got sick and started having problems with my eyes. And went to my doctor again, and it was a different doctor this time, but I told him that, my eyes flicker when I look to the sides, both of them. So nothing when I look up and down or forward, but when I look to the sides, I get double vision. And some medical people out there are probably going, oof, right now, because it can be very serious when you have double vision. It can be a sign of multiple sclerosis. And there was a really long period where I was sent to the emergency, and they checked for a lot of different things. They checked my head, took an x-ray there, checked for if I had a stroke or a tumor or anything like that, and they could find one teeny tiny little gray spot in one part of my brain. And they didn't know why it was there. So they had to do more tests, and they took a spinal tap and they sent me to nerve specialists and a hearing specialist and an eyesight specialist and so on. I was all over the place. And what I noticed that when I got there, I was greeted by a doctor who was fairly young. He was actually younger than me, and I'm 30. And he was like, I've never seen anything like it with your eyes, because usually when it's double vision or it's flickering, it's usually on one eye, it's not both. And it was identical with both. When I was sent to the ER, they were suspecting that it was maybe B1 vitamin shortage. So I was sent there to check for B1 vitamin shortage. And this first doctor, he couldn't understand what it was, had never seen anything like it, and he filmed my eyes. And then I was forwarded to the next doctor, and every time I met a new doctor, it was the same thing, have you had any problems with your digestion or whatever? And they always ask the same questions. And I always had to say that I was vegan every time. And the reaction I got was really, it changed from who I was talking to. And I see that when it's from people, not just medical doctors, but also nurses, from the age of 45 plus, the way that I'm met as a vegan and they are trying to figure out what's wrong with me, it's like, oh, you're vegan, okay. And I remember one of the nurses, she was like, oh, you gotta eat something, the meal is free and you're gonna be here for weeks, so just eat. And I'm like, no, it's fine, I have food with me. And she was like, no, you gotta eat. And I told her I was vegan, and she was like, oh, well, maybe you should eat your own food then. Yeah. And that attitude, it only was with the people that was around 45 and older. And the people that were younger, they were like, oh, you're vegan, cool. So we're going to do some tests on you. They didn't even think twice about it. So it seems like it's a new thing where I don't want to say older people, but people over 45-ish within the medical community, they haven't catched up on veganism yet. And anyway, they did a lot of tests. The B1 check blood test came out negative, but they messed up the blood sample, so they couldn't be 100% sure if it was shortage or not. And I remember when the eye doctor checked me and we did a couple of tests, when she came in, I'd never met her before, but when she came in, she was like, it looked like she had already made up her mind about that I had B1 vitamin shortage. And when she sat down and she was like, yeah, oh, okay, yeah, no wonder, this is just typical, yeah. And she had with her another doctor and 2 nurses, and they were like sitting there, rolling their eyes and just taking their hands on their lap, back and forth, and you could see they were really uncomfortable in her presence. And it seemed like, and she was 45-ish, and the rest were under 30. And she called me afterwards, we have to go through some tests and look at your MR. And then she called me back and she said, well, you may have permanent damages to your eyes, and that's kind of what happens when you eat the way you do. We're not supposed to eat the way you do. And I was just shocked, because according to every nutrition expert out there on the planet, we are supposed to eat a plant-based diet. And a vegan diet is a plant-based diet. So if you do it right, why even comment it? What does an eye doctor, what kind of background does an eye doctor have to talk about what you're supposed to eat or not? I mean, that's like going to, I don't know, a heart surgeon because you have broken your toe. It doesn't make any sense. You talk to a clinic dietary or registered dietitian who can give food as medicine, who is allowed to give food as medicine. That's who you go and talk to about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. So an eye doctor telling me that we're not supposed to eat the way that I do, it was just a hit to the gut. I was kind of breathtaking about the whole thing. And after everything was over, it's a very long story that I've shortened down. I finally talked to a registered dietitian who had a master's degree in nutrition. And she, was all over the place. She was very busy, and she was talking to, people with anorexia and bulimia and so on. And when she sat down with me, she was like, oh, so you're vegan? Yeah, okay. So what do you eat? And we went through everything, and she was really positive, and it was like she was really happy. And we made a plan, a 1-week plan, and we went through what I eat in a week. And she said, this is really good. I can't see anything wrong. The blood test that you took, the B1 blood test, came out negative, so that was fine. And from what you eat, you shouldn't be having B1 vitamin shortage. And she also said that I want you to take a multivitamin just in case, so you have a proper intake of what you need every day, in case you don't eat as well one day. I just want you to have every nutrient you need every day. And she told me to eat more beans and a tablespoon or 2 of either canola oil or olive oil. And this is supported not just by her, but through various health organizations in Norway. So, and they have based their recommendations on recommendations from the World Cancer Research Fund and the World Health Organization and so on. So it's not just one person that is saying this. And anyway, I told her, she asked me, the second time I met with her, are you okay? You seem a little down. And I told her that I'm actually really depressed because why aren't the medical doctors saying the things that you are? Why aren't they giving the nutrition advice that you are? Because you are telling me that what I'm eating is very good, and they are not. And why is that? And she said there is a lot of confusion around, and not everyone agrees. But the nutrition experts, they agree. And I think you should be talking to me about nutrition, not to an eye doctor. And of course that makes sense, I also thought that too. But that's my main struggle with veganism, is that it's not supported by the medical industry, in my experience, when it's people from 45 plus. And maybe I was just unlucky with my doctors and nurses that I met, but I really, really don't think so, because I met 30 different kinds of doctors and nurses. It was just, I was all over the place. And they said at the time, by the way, about the multiple sclerosis, that it was, they could rule it out then, but I would have to take some new tests later, and I've taken some tests and they hadn't changed. So for it to be MS, it has to be a lot of gray areas in your head that is changing as the time progresses. And with me, it hasn't. So they pretty much ruled out MS. But I'm going back every once in a while to check. People say that veganism is easy. I do have to agree on certain areas. Like food, I don't have a problem with vegan food. There's a lot of delicious stuff out there, and I create my own recipes. But I do, and when it comes to family members and friends, it's pretty much never a problem. When I went vegan, it was like, oh, okay, so what do I make for you? So it wasn't really a problem. But it's the medical care system that I have a problem with. And I keep seeing different things that I don't like. I was also a secretary for a few years at a climate research institute. And at the time, I wasn't vegan. And they did a lot of good research. They have been helping the IPCC writing their report, which led to the Nobel Peace Prize that they shared with Al Gore in 2007. And so their work is very important, and they do solid work, and they're kind of world known within the climate research world. And I remember when I was in charge of the phones, there was a lot of people calling me that thought they knew it all. And I kind of labeled them as crazies. When you're in charge of the phones, you get a lot of weird phone calls. So I was kind of the filter. I had to filter out the crazies with a radio channel that wanted to interview one of our scientists. And anyway, this woman called and she said, this report says that because cow fart, it's the leading cause of global warming. And I was like, really? Do they now? And I told her all of our scientists are busy right now. And after we were done talking, I was like, oh man, cow farts, really? And then I started to, when I became vegan, I found out that the leading cause of global warming is because we eat animal products. And I was like, oh my God, this woman that called me, I remember her, and she was right. And I learned that from Emily from Bite Size Vegan, by the way. I watched her video and I did a lot of research on it to check if everything was correct, and it was solid. And she's a really good vegan YouTuber. I really love her work. And when you look at all of that, and I also saw Cowspiracy, which was really eye-opening. And then I started doing my own research. I asked the Norwegian Water Association, how, um, why aren't you guys talking about saving water by not eating meat on your website? And they said that, well, we all know that eating meat is not really good for the environment or water usage, but in Norway we don't really have too little water. We have enough, more than enough, so it's not really a problem. So therefore we choose not to talk about it. And then I asked, well, why do you choose to talk about dripping water heads, water shaving shower heads? Why do you recommend that on your website but not eating meat? And then I never heard from them. And that's kind of the thing that there are other things that I've been asking also through other organizations. And as soon as you start touching a subject that is about animal products, they just shut off and they don't talk to you anymore. And it made me think about, oh wow, as big as the company that I was working for and as good as the work that they do, and they're really, really respected worldwide, I've never seen anything about meat. And I just got their latest magazine that they had published, and nothing about meat. And it seems like people selectively choose out the things that isn't convenient. And I've noticed difficulties within the medical community, and I've noticed difficulties about finding information. I tried finding information about, okay, what is the number one thing we can do to prevent global warming? I want to have like a list where we can, okay, this causes this much damage, this causes this much, this causes this much, and so on. And then we can go and put most of our resources into the number one cause and try and prevent it that way. But instead, the researchers keep saying that, it's really, we shouldn't be labeling this is the worst cause and this is less, because recycling is important, and it's just really important that everyone does something, because everything helps. And I can argue that it doesn't, because according to Emily's video, if you recycle and don't use any paper for a year, you save I think it was 18 trees. But if you don't eat any beef for a year, you save 3,432 trees. And so, in other words, if you are recycling but eating beef, we're still losing over 3,400 trees. So it's not saying that everything helps is in reality not the case, but it actually just harms just a little bit less, if you understand that. It just damages a little bit less. If it would actually help, you would see the forests growing back, and that would happen if we didn't eat cows. Then the Amazon actually would have a chance to regrowing itself. So I find it very difficult to live in a world where politics control a lot of things, and things are controlled by money. They did a study on why eating fish protein is better than cow protein or beef protein. and they had labeled their headline, which is the best protein? And the nutrition experts can argue that it's plant-based protein that is the best. But instead, they hadn't focused on that. They had focused on fish versus cow protein. And it makes it, I can just see that it's about growing one's business and trying to stomp down on the others. And I don't like that. I really don't like how we can not talk about the number one cause of global warming, of acidification in the oceans, about desertifications, about deforestation, about why almost 1 billion people are starving every year and 750 million don't have clean drinking water, and why over 130 species go extinct every day, and why the oceans might collapse within the year 2048, and how the human race can go extinct. And nobody's talking about that number one cause, because the way that it looks like is because they want to promote their own organization and put down the other ones that get in their way. And that's very depressing. And I didn't think like that before I went vegan. So to me, being vegan is very difficult because the enormity of the problems out there is so huge. And it's very complicated, and it's very political. And it makes me really worried about the future. And I do believe that, like, YouTube channels like The Vegan Corner and Mary's Test Kitchen, and these wonderful channels where you learn about vegan cooking, because I believe that the way to a man's heart is through his belly, and I think that's a very, very effective way to try and convert people to veganism, or at least eat more vegan as much as they can. To make delicious food, making it practical, and telling the truth. And that's why I was so inspired by Carrie and her talk. It was at the Vegan Future Festival, where she says, now we have a chance through social media to talk about how veganism actually works and why we should do it. And I come from a background where I hunted when I was in my teens, and I never had a problem with killing animals. I've eaten the things that I've been hunting. I've always, I could eat like half a kilo of meat for dinner, and it was never a problem. It's kind of weird to think that I, of all people, went vegan. So when I go vegan with that background, there must be a good reason for it. And I think the best way we can spread veganism is being ourselves, telling the truth, and just using social media as much as we can. So I really do agree with Carrie. She makes a lot of good points. And this is the Carrie where she has the long blonde hair. I believe she's Scottish, and she's pretty amazing. And having other real vegan YouTubers around, like Banana Blondie and Plant-Based Athlete and Frilly and Jern Ryder and Mary and Mary's Test Kitchen. It's just, I think it's a really, really effective way to spread a really, really good cause. But I do see a lot of perfectness going on. And I have to say, it can be really, really crappy to be vegan sometimes. And for me, it's not about the family, it's not about the food, it's about how the medical care system and how the political stuff works. Just now they were gathering money to save the rainforests, and they didn't mention meat in the interviews. And I was like, oh my God, if you really want to save the rainforest, stop eating cows. Because that's up to 91% of the rainforests that is gone because we eat cows. So it's very hypocritical, a lot of the things, and it can be very, very tiring. So for those of you who, it made me question my veganism, if I should keep on doing it or not. That's why I've been so MIA for so long. Started making a lot of recipes and YouTube videos, and then I just cut it out for a while, and I started questioning it. And because things are so difficult, I'm never going to say that I'm never eating meat again. I could never imagine eating meat again, knowing what I know. But I also get very depressed from how the world is. So I do understand people who do go back to eating animal products, because it can be so tiring to face these struggles every single day. So I'm not judging anyone, and that's why I think my way of spreading the vegan message can be very effective, because I don't want to judge. I wasn't vegan for 30 years, and I think that when people know what I know, I think a lot of people would be vegan. And if they weren't vegan, with all of the knowledge that I have, I would still understand it, because it's not for everyone. But I do hope that we can try and get the truth out as much as possible, and not let the medical care system have such an insane hold on telling people how to eat and what to not eat, because they have no business there telling people what to eat and not to eat. That should be going through a dietitian, someone who knows nutrition. So I think change will happen, and I really, really, really wanted to. I think the future is nutrition. I think the medical care system will change, hopefully, and when doctors start prescribing food, plant-based food that is healthy, to their patients, I think a lot of diseases will go away, and I think that's the future. And then most of the reasons why people are at hospitals is because of trauma, like if they got hit by a bus or something like that, broken bone or whatever. I think the future is with the nutrition experts, so we can prevent a lot of these diseases, and medical doctors will still have a part, but a smaller, much, much, much smaller part than they have now. I do hope for a shift. I do hope that things don't become so difficult for people in the future, because when a medical doctor tells you you should be eating meat, many people do because of it, and I think it's a real shame. I think the truth should be said by, you need protein. So you could be eating lentils or fish or, meat or whatever, but just tell the truth that the more animal products you eat, the higher the chances are that you will develop certain diseases. So I do see a brighter future if we don't get ourselves extinct in the process, but it can be also very depressing. So know that if people quit veganism, it's probably for a reason. And I don't think it's necessarily because they're lazy. I do think that it's probably for a very good reason. And my friends, they really are interested in vegan cooking now, and they really Sometimes they want to cook for me, and I'm like, which is so amazing when they do that. But it's really cool to see that that's kind of a new cuisine to them now. They have Italian food, they have Mexican, they have Norwegian, and then they have vegan. And so they do experiment every now and then, which I think is amazing, and I commend them for that. Even though they eat meat, I'm like, that's awesome. Just keep learning, just keep making food. And even if you're not vegan, doesn't mean that you should stop, that you should never eat vegan food. Just try and experiment and see what works for you. And anyway, I think you have a good point when it comes to just not trying to be perfect every time. Carrie mentioned that. She was kind of skeptical if she was going to post something, and then her hair was kind of messed up. There was like a little hair that was living its own life, and she was like, oh man, should I post that or not? My hair is not good. But ultimately, she wanted to be herself, and she wanted to post things about veganism. So that's what I'm trying to do here. The thing about veganism, it can be tough, but I do recommend that you do learn more and more about it, because it's a very, very good cause. Not just potentially for your health, if you do it right, but also for the planet. So I say, try and minimize the harm as much as you can for yourself and your surroundings. So my name is Kim Heroy. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching, it was a really long video, but hopefully I will be getting more and more videos out there now. So stay true to yourself and have a nice day.